Okay, I'm going to explain to you exactly what a pilot check ride is going to look like. Stand by. Now, you've probably already asked your peers and they gave you a gouge or some questions that the examiner asked them on their check rides. But what I'm going to do is give you the textbook answer as to the outline and what the check ride is going to look like. But the first thing I want you to do is go to Google, type in FAA ACS. When you get there, you're going to see a link for something called the ACS Companion Guide. Within that guide, there is a checklist of everything that you need to bring to your check ride. Now, when you sit down with the examiner, typically they're going to have out their computer and their iPad and a pen and paper. Don't get alarmed. Throughout the entire check ride, the ground and the flight portion, the examiner is going to be taking down notes. A lot of times it's just to debrief you on an item or to give you kudos on an answer or performance of a maneuver. Unless you hear those words unsatisfactory, there's really nothing to be worried about with the note taking. Now, the examiner is going to give you a pre-test briefing, and they're typically going to give you the outcomes of a check ride and give you the outline of a check ride as well. Next, they're going to usually look through your logbook, make sure you've met the requirements, you have the proper endorsements. Then they're going to go through your IACRA application. Make sure that both yourself and your instructor have thoroughly gone through that application and everything on there is correct, because if something's wrong, the examiner can turn you away and you may have to come back another day to start the check. Usually, then, they're going to give you a briefing on the pilot's Bill of Rights and the Privacy Act notice, and then they're going to have you sign your application form, at which point they're going to say, the test has now begun. Now, when you start the ground portion, expect the questions to be a little bit different than you're used to. So, they're not going to be asking rote answer questions like, tell me the privileges of a private pilot certificate. Expect the questions to be more scenario based, like, okay, you just got your private pilot certificate, and your friend says, I'm going to pay to rent the aircraft, and I'm going to take us all out to dinner because I'm so happy you just got your certificate. Tell me about that. They're going to expect you to apply the knowledge that you have for privileges and limitations of a private certificate to those scenario based questions. So, what you can do is if you don't understand the question thoroughly, ask the examiner to clarify what they're asking you, and they will reword it a different way. But they are expecting your application and your knowledge there. Also, don't expect the oral questioning to stop at the knowledge part. The oral questioning is going to continue throughout the entirety of the check, the pre flight and the flight portion of the check ride. If the flight portion can't be conducted that day because of weather, they're not even going to start the ground portion. So it's just going to be a weathered check ride, and you're going to have to come back at another time. Now, when you get to the flight portion, they're going to give you a pre flight briefing. The examiner has to have a plan of action for the entirety of the check, and that plan of action is based on the ACS or the PTS, respectively. The ACS and PTS are the only standards for a practical test, and they're actually incorporated by reference into the regulation. So the examiner has to use the ACS and the PTS for the entire ground portion and the entire flight portion. If you haven't seen my video on how to pass any check ride, take a look at that next. That'll give you a lot more insight into the use of the ACS on a check ride. Now, the examiner will give you that plan of action. They're going to tell you how the flight portion is going to flow. You can expect the examiner to give you instruction on what maneuver to do next, but they're not going to give you any instruction at all on the maneuvers and how to do maneuvers. They're there just evaluating your performance of maneuvers. If you're unfamiliar with the tolerances, get extremely familiar using the ACS and what those tolerances are. Know that, and you'll see this in my video, that you can exceed those tolerances as long as you take those prompt corrective actions to get yourself back within the tolerances and you're not consistently exceeding the tolerances. It's still satisfactory. Overall, throughout the knowledge, the ground portion, and the flight portion, the examiner is only determining your overall mastery and sound judgment as a pilot in command of an aircraft in operating with that certificate for which you're testing. I hope this helps you out, gives you a lot more confidence and insight going into your check ride. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I'll see you next time.